I'm Luke Summerhays, and I love Numel. I was born in Western Europe, and for the past 3 years I've lived in Japan, so I'm very familiar with the idea of riding horses. For large swathes of the world, though, the horse is far less useful than nature's gangly, lumpy weirdo, the camel. Camels' wide, flat hooves and humps full of fat, which scientists now believe originally evolved for life in the snowy north, are perfect for walking long journeys over the shifting desert sands. Across Saharan Africa and the Middle East, camels became partners to humans only around 1,000 years after the horse, making them a natural animal to turn into a Pokémon. Numel is Pokémon's first camel monster. A fire and ground Pokémon, it has a squat, babyish proportion, but the distinctive ears and hump make it clearly a camel. Numel is a sandy colour, though the hump has a greenish covering like grass, making it resemble a small hill or mountain. More on that later. Numel's Pokédex entries are an interesting mix between utterly mad superpowers and very natural camel factoids. For example, Pokémon Emerald tells us, a Numel stores boiling magma in the hump on its back. It is a hardy Pokémon that can transport a 220-pound load. It has served humans at work since long ago. Pokémon Sapphire leans much harder into the fiery, fantastical elements, telling us, Numel stores magma of almost 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit within its body. If it gets wet, the magma cools and hardens. In that event, the Pokémon's body grows heavy, and its movements become sluggish. And Pokémon Ruby goes the other way, and essentially bullies Numel along with real camels. Numel is extremely dull-witted. It doesn't notice being hit. However, it can't stand hunger for even a second. This Pokémon's body is a seething cauldron of boiling magma. I mean, sure, camels have a goofy face, but they're also famous for being able to go a long time without eating. I suppose due to that they aren't used to being hungry, so maybe they can't stand it. The name Numel itself comes from a combination of num and camel, referring back to this dull wit. The Japanese name is Donmel, combining camel with don, which again means dull-witted, slow or stupid. Numel was, for Team Magma, the villainous team in Pokémon Ruby, what Carvanha was for their counterparts Team Aqua in Pokémon Sapphire. It also shares the base stats, though the level at which it evolves is a little higher. At level 33, Numel becomes Camerupt. Camerupt is one of those great Pokémon that just comes from a simple high concept. Camels kind of look like they have mountains on their backs. What if they had volcanoes on their backs? Camerupt has a shaggy red coat, 2 rocky volcanic humps, and a pattern of rings along its side. It doesn't have the gangly legs of a camel, but the face and humps make that inspiration clear. The overall body shape is more like that of a cow. Unlike Numel before it, none of Camerupt's Pokédex entries come across as though they are talking about real camels. Instead, they lean much harder into the volcanic angle. Pokémon Ruby tells us, Camerupt has a volcano inside its body. Magma of 18,000 degrees Fahrenheit courses through its body. Occasionally, the humps on this Pokémon's back erupt, spewing the superheated magma. And Pokémon Sapphire tells us, the humps on Camerupt's back are formed by a transformation of its bones. They sometimes blast out molten magma. This Pokémon apparently erupts often when it is enraged. I find it hilarious that Pokémon Sapphire tries to give a naturalistic, biological explanation of Camerupt's humps. A transformation of its bones? They're volcanoes, mate! And finally, Pokémon Emerald tells us, a Pokémon that lives in the crater of a volcano. Every 10 years, the volcanoes on its back erupt violently. Research is underway on the cause of eruption. The name Camerupt is obviously just a combination of camel and erupt. The Japanese name is Bakuda, a combination of Bakudan, meaning bomb, or maybe Bakuhatsu, which means explosion or eruption, and Rakuda, which means camel. Camerupt's fire and ground typing, along with some hefty attack stats and OK abilities, gave it a pretty tasty niche competitively. Immunity to thunder and resistance to grass made it effective against some of the most common Pokémon, while powerful fire and ground moves let it knock out many others. Its only weaknesses are to ground, which it can also dish out, and an unfortunate 4 times weakness to water. This led to many players equipping it with Explosion, to take down any water-type threats with it. Somehow this seems very appropriate for the volcanic beastie, particularly with the explosion-based Japanese name. In the 6th generation, Camerupt added more firepower to its arsenal when it gained the ability to Mega Evolve into Mega Camerupt. Mega Camerupt looks great, and is actually one of those rare Mega Pokémon designs that looks as though it could work as an actual next evolution for the Pokémon in question. Mega Camerupt's coat is a little shaggier, now resembling some kind of mountain yak. The crest of fur on its head has grown into a more elaborate crown or headdress, and the 2 small rocky volcanoes have combined into one big active mountain, with magma leaking and pooling. A big boost in stats, and the useful ability Sheer Force, which let it trade stat changes and status effects for more power, allowed Mega Camerupt to burn through foes like a volcano's magma melting everything in its path. That 4 times weakness to water was a particular issue for Camerupt in the doubles format, favoured by the competitive video game, but in the 7th generation, a pairing with Tapu Bulu let it shine even as a doubles monster. Like Mega Sharpedo was for Archie, Mega Camerupt was positioned as the signature Pokémon of Maxie, the leader of Team Magma. The volcano motif was extremely appropriate, but this Mega form is less of an over-the-top supervillain final boss. This makes it slightly less threatening than Mega Sharpedo, but much more appealing as a Pokémon to have on one's own team. In recent years, I've learned to love mountains and hiking. Sometimes I encounter mountains and hot springs with volcanic origins. The intense heat of Camerupt, and Mega Camerupt especially, reminds me that I need to treat these incredible natural powers with respect. Music for Luke Love's Pokémon was composed by Jonathan Cromie. Artwork for the show is by Katie Groves. Writing, editing, and producing is all by me, Luke Summerhays, and costs are covered by my lovely supporters on Patreon. If you like this podcast, please rate and review on whatever podcast app you're listening through, and please tell your Pokémon-loving friends. The podcast can be found on Twitter and Facebook at LukeLovesPKMN, so why not get in touch? The next 2 monsters are Torkoal and Spoink, so please let me know if you have thoughts about those or any other monsters. Lastly, as I mentioned, this podcast is supported by Patreon. If you want to listen to episodes early and help keep the show hosted online, visit patreon.com/podcastiopodcastius. And even if you don't feel like doing any of that, thank you so much just for listening. I love Numel, and remember, I love you too.